We'll read the next item of business.
Government Business Order of the Day number 1, Small Business Commissioner Bill, resumption of the interrupted second reading debate.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Baulkham Hills, who was interrupted. That's right.
Before I was interrupted,
Before you were interrupted.
Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I rise to conclude my contribution to the Small Business Commissioners Bill of 2012, and remind the House that as we concluded the proceedings and deliberations of the Parliament at the end of last week, more and more statistics were coming to the government's hand, and indeed to the Chamber of Commerce's hand, highlighting the growth that small business is enjoying here in New South Wales. It's growth that we're not used to here in New South Wales after 16 years of Labor. And so I join the Treasurer and the Minister for Small Business in congratulating the government and indeed all those stakeholders in the small business fraternity for the employment opportunities they provide so many people here in New South Wales. But just to turn to the detail of the bill, Mr Deputy Speaker, this complaint facility that I referred to in my remarks late last week in relation to Section 5 and 9 of the bill actually will ensure that small businesses will no longer be required to suffer in silence at the hands of unethical practices of larger enterprises. And it appears to me that we've been very quick to protect large businesses from unconscionable conduct, but this bill indeed will allow us to protect small business as well. To fulfil this function, the Commission is granted wide investigative powers and has the ability to refer matters that adversely affect small business to the Director-General of the Department of Financial Services. The Small Business Commissioner will also be a provider of low-cost alternative dispute resolution and mediation to small businesses. Now, Mr Acting Speaker, if I could just pause there and remind the House that one of the great costs of doing business in this litigious society, growingly litigious society, is the cost of providing legal assistance in the event of a conflict. So allowing for a low-cost dispute resolution is something that I know, having represented small business on the better part of the last decade, will be most welcome. Because small businesses are frequently the victim of prolonged and costly litigation, and there wouldn't be a member in this House that hasn't seen a thriving business in their own constituency terminated because of prolonged and costly litigation. There is a natural need for alternative dispute resolution services within the small business sector, and I really compliment the Minister and indeed the Cabinet for highlighting and acknowledging this particular circumstance. The Small Business Commissioner is also tasked with identifying and supporting measures to reduce the administrative burden for small businesses. Small businesses have long waited for an advocate within government that is dedicated to removing the unnecessary and bureaucratic burden that is placed upon them by government. In the Small Business Commissioner, small business will finally have such a dedicated advocate that is responsible with furnishing advice to the Minister on issues relating to small business. Again, Mr Deputy Speaker, the growth of the industry associations around New South Wales just highlights once again the fact that small business only feels comfortable when they have a gathering, a professional standing, and these industry associations are collectively acting on behalf of certain professions and trades, when indeed they shouldn't be burdened with those costs of joining these industry associations. Now that may seem strange for somebody who's been a CEO of an industry association to say, but one of the horrifying things I saw in the 10 years that I had as a CEO of a professional body was the fact that people would only go there as a form of last resort because they knew that there was the government, or they were convinced that government were looking out for their best interests, and their competitors and other corporate stakeholders were not being as sympathetic as maybe they had hoped. Mr Deputy Speaker, in the 16 years the previous Labor government were on the Treasury benches, they couldn't be bothered to support small business, despite the fact that yearning from small business sector for an advocate like the Small Business Commissioner we've seen was evident. Given this experience, the small business sector must have been highly surprised, if not amused, that the Shadow Minister for Small Business's newfound enthusiasm when he made his when he presented his bill last year. Indeed, it was last year when the Shadow Minister introduced in the other place his own legislative framework for the Small Business Commissioner. This was quite astounding. While it is good to see the Labor Party endorse Liberal and national policy, such a position would have been welcome quite some time ago. This bill guarantees that the Small Business Commissioner will become what the Premier has referred to as burr under the saddle of government, which is exactly what the small business sector surely needs. Mr Deputy Speaker, I know you have been an advocate for small business, having been involved and employed in the small business sector, and I look around the chamber and I see so many other members here, including the member for Londonderry, the member for Coogee, the member for Port Macquarie, and the member for Murray-Darling, who have all been employed in the small business sector. This is evident in the coalition party room. Whenever these issues arise, we have some passionate advocates, and I for one am thrilled and proud that the government that I'm a member of has seen fit to provide a bill giving a small business commissioner the authority and the assistance that it currently is in this legislation. So I commend the bill to